Hello. I don't know how this works. Can you hear me? I don't know. That's mute. That was mute. I was hoping to get my little mic. It has worked before, but for some reason it's not working now. Sorry for this angle. I also took out my contacts, so sorry you're going to get a flying eye. But never I the one time that I did a live was I tried to be a gamer, like a Twitch gamer, but before I figured out the whole Twitch thing, or I was trying to do Twitch and YouTube at the same time. It was a whole thing with Red Dead Redemption. And it was an awkward one too because I didn't remember at all how to play because I hadn't played for a while. I really want to get my glasses. Is this even I don't hold on. Okay. I'll just uh I'll just use this and it should be good. Um, okay. So, again, I have no idea how this is sounding, how this is working. But I have quite a few things to talk about. And instead of a regular video, I thought it looks really fun when people go live. And it's also so nice because then you don't need to edit. But then the not nice part is you don't get the ums out and all that stuff. So there's a lot. Will be primarily focused on Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. There's Ryan Reynolds involved in this live. There's Hugh. I always want to call him Hugh Hefner, Hugh Grant, Hugh Jackman. Got it on the third time. I actually had to Google that. And I used to like him. Well, not like have a crush like him, but like I was aware of him and stuff. But yeah, it's been a while. So, yeah, we're going to cover more of the voice note, Justin Baldoni's voice note. I have thoughts. I didn't do this with the video, but I have thoughts, afterthoughts. I've watched um Popcorn Planet. I've watched uh Daily Dose of Dana. Did Jersey just call her Donna? No, she called herself Donna. I don't know. I'm just so I'm so insecure about people's names. Um, yeah. Wait, why did I bring that up? You get some of this too. I wish I had a drinking game with myself because I need to drink more water, and I'm sure we're going to get. I guess like either of their names, Justin, Blake, Ryan's, those three names, if they come up, I'll try to remember to drink some water. Um, why it's important to heal, how do triggers and projections come into play into this potentially? Kind of speculation, okay, brain English. Why 2 a.m. with the voice note? Some Jay Leno thoughts. Some Jay Leno thoughts indirectly about this case that I thought applies so perfectly well. Cersei interviewed him, and look at that interview. It's so awesome. But what he said about being humble, basically, you can imagine, was like really interesting. Basically, Hollywood etiquette 101, or filmmaker actually etiquette 101, not so much Hollywood, probably. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey, and the boycott Super Bowl trend. I don't think it's related. What I saw, it was related to cheating. Not better. Wait, can you hear me through here? No. I don't know where you can hear me. If anyone can let me know if you can hear me at least, that would be great. Um, yeah. Did I mention 90 days? That's like an afterthought. I will get to it another time because I don't remember, but it was 90 Day Fiance. If you watch it before the 90 days was, thank you, Team November. Um, it was the most like physically painful thing I've seen from them in a long time or ever. It was really excruciating to watch that. I haven't watched last night, so that's why I'm like, let me see how that goes. And then Last Resort is happening now. Bachelor is happening now. I don't plan on watching The Bachelor. Matt James and Rachel Kirkconnell, they broke up. That was probably the last Bachelor I saw. Anyways, so while that's happening, we're here. Thank you so much. I have like 7 people. I didn't imagine anyone was going to be on here, so thank you. So the cease and desist. I actually I'm so I had a feeling this was the video Emily D. Baker. She's a YouTuber on here that most of us know that have been involved in this whole Blake Lively Justin Baldoni thing. And I had a feeling it was her video today regarding the gag order kind of stuff. And as I need to remember to breathe, get to I think it's like that take up space issue that I have, like, oh, just be quick, and then I can't breathe and I can't be quick enough. And okay, I'm deviating. So I thought someone mentioned in one of the videos that I saw, I think not Popcorn Planet, I forget, but someone mentioned, and I was chatting with them. If you're on here, hi. Regarding, you know, could Justin's team or side could they have leaked the CRD complaint initially to the New York Times? And because so it was interesting, and I don't have her. Is it this? Yeah, I okay. So in a response, I don't have the link yet, but in their response, in Blake Lively's team's response to Justin Baldoni's team response to Blake Lively's not gag order initial response to the lawsuit or whatever, in this communication chain, there was basically a claim by Lively's side saying that they leaked it before anything else. But they say specifically, initiated by the manner in which they or their counsel, Wayfair, Baldoni, etc., Wayfair parties, they're calling it, this leaked the CRD complaint to the tabloid media. I don't think they're referring to the New York Times, right? Because I don't think New York Times is tabloid, right? Everything's online now, but aren't they? Yeah, right? Like there's the other one that's the like magazine, New York something. No, yeah, New York Times is the newspaper. Anyways, so they're referring to something else. When? When did they have time? Because everything exploded with the New York Times article. So, and that was Emily's reaction too. It's like, I didn't see anything. Everything just happened with the New York Times. So, and that's what had heard from another lawyer on another video. They were saying the same thing that, well, sorry, I didn't get to that part. So, basically, the CRD, this is Emily D. Baker, a quote from her. The CRD complaint is an administrative complaint. Excuse me. It is not a publicly accessible filing. The CRD complaints are not meant to be public. So unless just inside the Wayfair parties, they received the complaint directly from the Lively parties or party, whatever, then they wouldn't have known about it until it was filed, I guess. Or maybe not even then. So this claim sounds like they're trying to gaslight, because that's what a lot of us have been calling, um not just us, the public and the media, but also the judge and stuff. This is like pretty bold. um, and then Emily pointed out kind of the timeline seems to be, if they got the cease and desist, which seemed to come before, not this gag order thing that we've been talking about, but something else, a cease and desist that was issued on December 20th, I think she was saying. If they got that, and sorry if you hear the, sorry, the parakeet. If they got that from then before the complaint. And then they also get, 24 hours or what, less than 24 hours before the New York Times article, they get a, call or message, email, whatever it was from New York Times. Aro, may puyo. They get like requests for comment on this. Hey, this is coming out tomorrow. What can you say? Then she's like, well, it makes sense maybe why. Aro, may chuk. It makes sense. I think she's like, I want to sleep. I don't know. It makes sense why they, Wayfarer side, Baldoni side, Brian Friedman, why he went all out with the evidence and everything that he included in not the New York Times lawsuit, but the complaint they had towards Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds and their team. So yeah, she called it lawyer rage. Like, I mean, imagine being a lawyer, this is coming out, or you're informed that, hey, you have to be quiet, but we're about to file this complaint. I guess it makes sense as far as the complaint because it was meant to be public, but Blake Lively leaked it, or I mean her side leaked it, because it's almost impossible for the Baldoni side to have leaked it to the New York Times. And also, the New York Times included the link to the complaint. And I think there was and they requested comment from Baldoni's side. So it makes zero sense. They wouldn't do that, right? If it was from them. And this was like all the way around. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know, or let each other know. And one thing um would yeah, I felt kind of very excited when I got like a bunch of like comments, and then we could like talk things out and stuff. But yeah, and also there's not many on here, but either now live or after, if you are starting to lean, or have leaned this whole time on the Blake Lively side of things, please comment. Like, for me personally, at least, I really want to know the other side. So, yes. So that's kind of it for that, what I had for that. But it's interesting because that was kind of shocking to me. But now that I think about it, if the complaint was meant to not be public, as they usually are, then the cease and desist before that, I think, included also, hey, keep all your documentation because we'll subpoena them or whatever. Um, sorry, that would also make sense, right? Because it's like, hey, don't we're going to like file this complaint. Don't smear us in the media if that's what they thought. And they claim that's what they thought Baldoni's side did. But then they leaked it to the media. They leaked their own complaint to the media. So it then looks like, hey, here's the cease and desist, so you don't speak on the things that we're about to like claim about you publicly. You can't speak, but we actually trash you, you know. And trash you is probably not the right word, but yeah, so that sounds crazy. Um and then the voice note, I will leave that a little bit after a couple more points because that's a long one. Chug. Pew. It's like a parakeet live. She could care less about this. I don't know what she cares about actually. So I want to also talk quickly another thing that I found out. I think I mentioned this in another video. Isabella Ferrer. I'm sorry, I don't say that Englishly, Americanly. I don't know how she says it. I should do my homework with that. She had an interview where she said that Taylor Swift was highly involved in her audition, or her getting the part, but also specifically she mentioned the word audition. And yet Taylor claimed that she doesn't know she didn't know who Justin was. It could be after the voice note. So the voice note, I think, comes in around the time, like, before production, and I think that's when she rewrote the scene, right, Blake? I don't know. Yeah, because they start in May 2023, and the voice note was April, and the text messages with the note was April. And so, was Isabella hired before or after that voice note? That can, make a difference. But if it was before, because I know from Justin's lawsuit or complaint, I forget now, that was, he said somewhere that Blake was highly involved in also casting the other members of the cast and crew and so forth, some of the crew, which felt, it is a huge overstep, but okay. Um, so basically, and then I found this other video specifically from Justin saying, being asked about this, I imagine, and him saying, "Yeah, I received the tape from the casting director, and she just blew me away. Not just in being a spitting image of Blake, but also how incredible of an actor she is." He just boosts everyone up. It's like, actually, it is very different for all of us, because we don't talk like that. We just tend to put each other down and put others down all the time. So it is different to hear someone actually be elevated above that. But and also being a director, he had, if you want to be a really good director, like, you have to know how to, people have been calling it a different, like, appease and kiss butt. I don't swear. So you'll hear weird things like that. Um and it could be, but I think you genuinely need to go inside yourself and learn and understand how to support your actors, because you want your actors to be the best that they can be, and they can't be the best that they can be unless you're supporting them, unless you're finding that in them and encouraging that. Um, well, unless they can do it themselves, but if they can't, like, you're there as the next step to support them, to for them to shine. And so, and it has to come from a genuine place, because people tell. You can tell when someone's just kissing your butt. You can tell when, I think, especially in the moment, especially if it's a certain scene, or you're an actor or whatever, like, how you speak to the actor, and you're taught. I wasn't really taught as a director, but, like, it was a mixture of being taught and what I picked up and hearing other people talk. You want to pull the actor away, or, like, whisper to them notes or whatever. Depends on the relationship and the set and everything. But so I think you learn how to be mindful of other people's feelings and how fragile they can be, like all of us, especially if it's like raw emotion, and they're like, with Meisner is what I learned, like, you're emotionally preparing, you're emotionally going into that, you're going deeply into that emotion. And depending, I don't know, I haven't got to the set part yet. But yeah, it can be, you have to be careful with how you speak to people. And I think it's an awesome skill for all of us, because I know for sure me, I just am not careful at all. I am actually a lot more careful now. In the last few years, I've learned to not, just have that attitude of, like, well, if you get hurt by what I say and how I say it, that's on you. That's your problem. Because I used to be like that. And then I realized, well, I actually care about this person and that person, and maybe, like, I shouldn't say things. Maybe I should, like, think of other ways to say the same thing. Like, it might be something I am very, like, passionate about and well-meaning, but I suck. Like, I just recently over this whole thing got into that kind of um whatever you want to call it, altercation or whatever. Not it was through text message with a friend, and we don't talk anymore, I guess, over this. But I thought I was being so diplomatic, and I tried so hard to, and I've grown so much in the last few years to not his level. I will admit he is way further along on this journey than me, but to really take a breath and process and validate the other person. Um, but yeah, like I said, he is way down that line. Like, I'm still working that way. Um, yeah, even this weekend, it was like, yeah, I have a lot of work to do. Um, so I think that saying that regarding the voice note, and also how he answered this in this interview about, how he had to show Isabella's auditioning or audition tape to both Blake and Taylor. And he says this in the, excuse me, in the interview, and I'll link all of these below. And yeah, there is, I will say, for one, we can say what we can say about Blake's involvement, but she was at least hired for this project, at least like in the crew, in the cast. She was, a cast member, but like she was there. But her husband, Ryan Reynolds, it could be like her friend, her brother, sister, mother, dog, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, him and Taylor Swift had no place. Like, imagine if you're like working, and wherever you're working, let's say an office. I'm familiar with like marketing or whatever, small business office. Imagine, imagine if you come to work like, my husband said, or my best friend said that we should do this, or we should hire this person because that's what my best friend said. Like, that's basically what happened. And yes, Hollywood can be a little bit more informal, and filmmaking can be a little bit more informal. I don't know if there's like rules or unsaid rules, like etiquette, but I would imagine that it's etiquette for you to not involve people that are not inside the scope of this project, that are not hired for this project. It's like the collaborative little sphere of that project that's so important to be kept in there, because yeah, if it's Blake's project, if it's her first time directing or whatever, and she comes and needs like help. And I wonder if like the lines got blurred because to be a songwriter like Taylor Swift is different. To make your own project is different. When you're songwriting, that's your song. No one really works on there except like the producer, if you're working with other songwriters, etc. But like, it's your directing vision. No. Um I think you get what I mean. Like, it's your creative vision. It's your creative vision. And but Blake knows how filmmaking is versus songwriting. But that's what it sounds like with Taylor. It's like, from her perspective, she probably understood, like, yeah, she just needs my input. But it was Justin's movie. I mean, he got the rights to this. He like spent years before creating, starting this movie and this project. And he got involved. I saw this one clip of, he got involved survivors to go over the script, to like give him notes, to do all these things so he can get it right. And then come in these celebrities that maybe they're great, maybe they would have great input, but they're great at their craft, whatever, but not part of this project. They don't need, he doesn't need that. And it's such a, it's like, it gives me I just said that, but I said it like such an old person. Instead of it gives, I just said it gives me. But yeah, To me, it feels self-conscious now, like high school, college, or like you're on your 48-hour film project, or you're just doing an amateur movie project like Steven Spielberg and his buddies back in the day before, anything. They just like got a camera and just went and did a movie or whatever. And that's what it gives. I'm sorry to use that kind of phrase to my fellow millennials and others, but that's what this seems like. Not a professional. These people don't come across as like professional to get involved, people outside of this project, and to be involved as outsiders on this project, you know? And Justin was trying to manage it all, I imagine. Like he was I don't even know because she didn't even sign her contract. So technically, he could have just hired someone else. But right, she didn't sign her contract until actually we don't know when she signed it, but it was I think a year later or so, or not a year, but like into the fall, she hadn't signed it. So yeah, but I think it's interesting. I'm very curious what was in his state of mind as he was going through this. A lot of people are putting words and thoughts and feelings into his brain and mouth and where feelings are, body, saying that he was trying to appease Blake and he wanted to make this movie so badly that he was willing to give his control over to them and blah blah. I don't I don't know. Was he overwhelmed? Was he feeling like all of this was coming at him? Was it the frog in a boiling water thing where before he knew it, he was way too into this, deep into like everyone controlling and, managing and all these people and voices from the outside? Was he too nice? Was he insecure? Because I think there's a little bit of that, even though he's directed before and he's done a lot. I think over 10 years for sure, because Jane the Virgin, I think, was like 7 years ago or something, and that lasted for like 7 years. I don't know. But he's done a lot compared to, us. Um, but you get Blake Lively, she's like this huge star, and then you hear about Taylor Swift and Ryan, like, so I'm sure he got intimidated, and thought, not intimidated in a bad sense, even because a lot of people are taking it that way, but just like, oh well, I want to learn, because he seems so open to learn. So I think that's kind of, I'm projecting that, I guess, onto him because we don't know right now. But that would be my take. That he just saw these people with a lot more experience and at a different level of experience in some ways, and he thought, well, I want to learn from them. And then he's talked about he wanted to learn from women and from survive. So he went into this so open to take a back seat to this, that I think an interesting choice as a director, and a hard line to balance, right? How much control you give and how much control you keep. Um, I think he's a super nice, inclusive guy, used to working in the indie world, but also wanted to become more mainstream and probably felt this was a good opportunity. She took advantage to it. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. I think, yeah. And to his voice note, he said something like that too. And or like somewhere he said something like he wants to do better than what this industry has been as a, major most of the time. So yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, that's another one crossed off. Need to take a breath. Nervous and just like I get overly enthusiastic. Okay. I guess a good, sorry about that, a good segue would be to these like random questions that I kind of had or I've seen online, um regarding Justin. And um you know uh, a lot of people pick on his proposal, the proposal video, which nice bull references. I mean, that alone, talk about bullying on a whole different level. I've not experienced bullying, um, especially not to that level. I think in some ways that level, in the way that was done, you almost can like just shrug it off or whatever, because most people didn't even know what that reference was. But yeah, anyway, so a lot of people point to that video as like, look at him, he's so narcissistic, or he's so full of himself, or I don't like him. And a lot of people even, and I'll say, even when I was watching it, he talks about how, well, I was watching later, in an interview, he talks about how that was literally, he made that because that's how he wanted to propose, but he knew his wife, that was the last way she would have wanted to be proposed to publicly and so forth and big. And so he found this like compromise, he found this in between, and also kind of made fun. I think he kind of took it in his mind like he was making fun of this and trying to, it seems like all of his projects have this purpose and this introspective purpose and this philosophical purpose to them. At least that's what I understand from his interview about it, from watching it and so forth. And I could be wrong. So he was kind of, it was almost satirical, but yeah, it was weird because it was also his proposal. But she seemed to really enjoy it, and she seemed to be really happy. And I think that's the most important. The person that knows you best, how they take it. But I don't I don't think that's a sign of the things that people kind of accuse him of, just because he made this. Was an aspiring actor, or I think it was before Jane the Virgin, and before Jane, like he almost gave up acting, or he had given up acting and he went more towards directing. He was a filmmaker and an aspiring one, and that was like that was his gift to have and to hold and to share. So I don't know. I think that's fair. And not everyone that's like full of themselves or conceited or comes across that way, because we don't really know. And that voice note does not sound like someone who's full of themselves. But not everyone who is or has tendencies to do that has to be also that. There's a difference between narcissism and that people kind of put together. And that's why I made my video on like, okay, the expert in narcissism, like what is the checklist? In the DSM, what is the checklist? Like, let's get technical about this instead of just calling people whatever, just because it comes from that story with the guy who looked in the puddle or whatever in the water so long at himself that he turned into this flower, narcisa in Romanian. I forget what it's called. Is it? No, I don't know. It's whatever. It's that white or yellow flower that we get around springtime. So that's the story, and I think that's why people kind of keep going with this idea. But yeah, and that's what also Ryan Reynolds in his one thing said in a very disgusting way too, not even just that, but like in the worst possible way. He brought that point up. Um, but yeah, you can be conceited, you can love yourself to maybe to an extreme or whatever. That does not give you NPD, right? Yeah, or anything like that. It's more complicated and nuanced. But yeah, to some people that video is a turn off. Cool, you're not marrying him. And like if you're a guy or someone or a girl, whoever like that wants to propose and that turns you off because you feel insecure about what you are willing to do, that's also another thing too. So I don't think many people who said that are those people though. But yeah, it's always like, and this is kind of going into my other point of healing. Why is healing so important? And it's important so we don't project. We don't project on people that we work with, that we love, that we interact with. We also don't project on people that are in the news and the media as much as we can, in things like this, or being on a jury or whatever. Like, it's, you have to be careful to project your own experiences and how you process those experiences, right? So um his proposal video is like a great example of that. Are Is it bothering you? And I'm 50-50. It had moments when it like really was a turn off for me, and it had moments when it wasn't. But is that coming from inside? Like, where is that coming from? Or is it a fact? I will bet a lot on that it's not a fact, because most things aren't facts. Most things are opinions, or depending on perception and angle and so forth, and information. So yeah. Um yeah, anyways, okay. So, and then, this is something I wanted to talk about. Um can someone who speaks all the time about, or has a brand in his case, around feminism be trusted? Because there was almost like a trend of like, don't trust a guy who calls himself a feminist and all that stuff. And it's like, what I hear from that again is, that sounds like inner work for you. Why? And then I know that people, the term, what is it? Virtual signaling. I've heard people say that's why, but it's, you have to, like, you kind of have to decide as a case by case basis. You have to actually listen to them. How do they talk? Their tone of voice, their writing, what are they saying in what they're saying? He also hasn't called himself a feminist. People have called him a feminist, as far as I've seen from all the things that I've seen from him, and also about this specific issue too. He's talked about his exploration with healthy masculinity. His book, which actually I have, is coming on. It's coming from being on hold at the library. Man Enough, and the subtitle of that is undefying or redefining masculinity, something like that. So yeah, so one, he hasn't called himself a feminist, but he talks, his brand is around feminism. Well, not really. It's around healthy masculinity. Like, he talks so much around that. But Man Enough has a lot around women, empowering women's voices, bringing women on and sharing their experiences and giving them that platform. And yeah, that's also sometimes looked at like, well, who is he to give the platform, blah, blah, blah. But I think that's, I couldn't think of this word, I think this weekend or whenever, but not, it's not enough to not be something, but you have to be anti something. And he's part of that movement of being anti um, toxic masculinity, which I'll give it to people who say, calling something toxic is a last resort. And I don't know, but there is some actual toxic masculinity out there. But all in all, usually it's not quite to that level, but it's just this underlying misogynistic, maybe, or, you know, just skewed perception and skewed habits that we have as a society. And he's actively questioning that in himself, questioning that, from the outside world as well. And so that's what he's about. And I think that's why I'm saying, like, I think it's in the context. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on that. So, yeah, the one question I have that I don't have an answer to, and I want to ask this of anyone that has, like, is a therapist or has studied that, is there a relation between narcissism and SH? Um, I have absolutely zero thoughts on that right now. I have no idea, but that was like one of my because this list of questions was like things that I'm curious about, and some of them were like just things that I picked up and had opinions on. So really quick on this healing, why it's important to heal and to be aware of the level you are healed at too, because it's a continuous journey. Um, this I haven't said yet, but I guess in specifically to how it relates to this case, it's so media or Justin or Blake or anyone doesn't use your trauma and your triggers against you, doesn't use your emotions for their benefit, that you are able to see things from as much of an objective place as you can, because we're human, will never be 100% objective, and anything that's unhealed will not cloud what you're seeing too much, or sometimes at all if you don't have that. So um we saw a lot in Blake Lively's side of things, of their responses, a lot of using our emotions and playing on specific words like women know this, women who've experienced this can recognize this. I mean, literally making you see that cognitive dissonance, making you see what they want you to see that you might have not seen and it might not be there. But suddenly, when they match your trigger, they match exactly what's really, you might have, so much rage still about that, or you might feel so helpless, or you might have so much trauma around that. And so you're like, yes, this is the action that someone else can take that I can't take, and so forth. So that's dangerous. And I think that's one of the most important reasons why we need to heal. And one of the really it's hard to go around going to therapy when it comes to healing, because we have such an incredible adaptation to our biases and adaptation period. And so it's kind of like when you're proofreading your paper, or when I did calculus or pre-calculus. I don't think I got to calculus, did I don't know. But I would always get it wrong, because I would double check and triple check, and every time I would miss that plus that was supposed to be a minus or whatever. And that's because of your internal bias. You will always, your brain is already like accustomed to that mistake because you made it, and you're going to, maybe not all the time, but like I heard this and I thought, wow, that makes so much sense. You're going to overlook that, you're going to skip that, you're not going to notice that, or you're going to see like, yeah, that's the right thing, because of your bias. And having like an external, completely objective, there are some bad therapists out there, yes. But you have to vet them out and you have to figure it out. But um excuse me, an external, unbiased, has no skin in the game. Is that the word? Has no, um gains nothing, from anything. I know people would say like, well, they gain money if you keep coming to them. I believe there's a shortage. I believe that they have more than enough. They don't have enough time to serve the people that are, out there most of the time, or a lot of the time. So, but also that's not, if you're going to a true therapist, that's not why they do what they do. And they want you to, heal and get to the place that you need to be. And also that can take a lot of time depending on the person. But they want that because there's plenty of people. We all have issues, even though we don't admit it. So, but that having that external, again, as most objective as possible, and someone who has so much training and has seen so many people and has gotten the patterns and has seen so much, and so much of the nuance that we miss ourselves, or our friends and family. Talk about bias. Our friends and family should not be the ones we go to, um because yeah, they're completely completely biased in all sorts of different ways. So if you're going on that journey to heal, there's no bypassing that. Um, okay. So Ryan Reynolds and Hugh, I put Hugh, what's his name? Because I do feel bad, but I also find it funny that I really don't remember him. Because for a long time, I haven't seen anything of the big movie stars that used to be back in my time. I'm not that old, but I do get to say that. So he had this thing at Radio City Music Hall, and I guess some people say Blake was in attendance but hiding, and some people say she wasn't there. I think Ryan Reynolds wasn't there. Jack Wagon, yeah. Hugh Jackman. Sorry, I didn't actually say his real name. And Ryan got on stage, and I have there's so much to this stuff all the time, every day almost, that I haven't gotten to see if there's any video of this. But basically, Ryan Reynolds kind of hijacked, which is kind of ironic. It just hit me like the correlation between, Blake and Justin, and then now Ryan and Hugh. Um, but Hugh was part of Ryan's movie. But this was like a performance or a concert Hugh put on. And yeah, Ryan came on stage to like, tell everyone how great of a man he is and all this stuff. And I think Ryan mentioned that Blake was in attendance because she's staying out of the spotlight or out of the media or out of, I don't know, wherever. And it made me think, like, isn't that trying to gain sympathy for us to feel bad? Like, oh, she's in such a bad state that she can't come out. Again, that's not how I heard him saying that, but excuse me. But it made me think of that. I actually saw this story on Daily Dose of Dana or Dana. I'm Romanian. I should be able to say that the first time, but I just get like, again, like I'm speaking English right now. I don't know. I'm all over the place with languages, but yeah. So she was kind of reiterating all of this and how it went down, and she was talking about, I don't remember how she said it, but to me, like classic PR move, right? Back in the day. And Bethany Frankel from the Housewives, and she's very outspoken about a lot of things. Uh, like Dior purses, or if anyone has seen that, that was like, it took me so long. Like, what is she talking about? Anyways, what happened to the Dior purses? Are they still in the sky? Um, but yeah, how she said this in the summer, how Blake Lively handling the PR stuff, like the olden days where they're not accustomed to us, to all of us having our own platform, having TikTok, having Instagram, having Facebook, having YouTube, having whatever, and commenting and making videos and making shorts. And nothing is like super produced. It's just like people who have a thought that they say it. And or they have stories or they have references or whatever. And they're not really trained or ready for that. Like she has an older style PR approach, and of like, don't say anything, it'll go away, um or deflect things, like which she was saying also about Ryan, like just kind of deflecting, like, oh, everything's fine, and um just, yeah, like the show must go on, or just another day, just another day. It's like, wait, aren't you taking this seriously? Like, you can't be that hurt. But that's what they're used to, and that's what stars used to do. And I think now, and this is like the magic of this case, I think too, is like seeing how many people are like, no more. I don't care for this. I don't care to be manipulated. That's the tough one, but I don't care to be PR'd. I don't care to have, the polished version of these celebrities. I want the real stuff. I want you to be real, and the thought went around from my head. Um But yeah, so but this like whole like trend of being real and not taking commercial media. Oh, that's what I was thinking. Like with the elections and everything, think what you think about uh, the results of this election and the current president. The idea behind it is that people ultimately just are tired of being um talked to not in the most honest way, and he's not any different, but the way that he presents things sounds a lot more like he's being very frank or candid and not so PR-y, but he's totally PR too. But that's the thing, like it's just we're tired of that. We don't want that anymore. So in the celebrity world, the same thing, and a lot of celebrities from the older days of, like, 10 years ago, um, some don't have a PR team that has caught up to that, and so that was Bethany Frankel's take, and then it seems like it. Even how they're responding to this, it's like, "Oh, if we say something to the public, they're going to, take our word for it. They're going to believe what we say." Because we bring in like women and we call out to them and we use these buzzwords. And I think I think Nelson told me like dog whistling. Is this dog whistling? It's kind of just in your face. It's not really a dog whistle. It's just like, I think I said this in another video. It's just blowhorning, like, women gather around. And yeah, so with Ryan and Hugh, like it just to me, it sounded like Dana also said this, like it sounded like he made it about him. Like, what the heck? Ryan's like being sued and he's in this like lawsuit, and he and or Hugh Jackman feel like that's the person that needs to talk highly about Hugh. Shouldn't it be the other way around, right? Wait, like, right? It should be the freaking other way around because Hugh Jackman so far hasn't had like terrible PR, terrible um stories. The whole like relationship stuff, yeah, that's a little bit but it's like normal stuff, right now. It's like, okay, relationship drama, and was it the best? Was it the most honest and truthful? And it sucks and whatever. But what Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni and the people around them, what they're going through, it's quite a lot more than that. It's not quite even personal. It's and potentially even legal if the whole thing, like, no one's just jumped right there. No one's talking about, because we don't know the answer. Who freaking wrote that rooftop scene? But no one's talking about that, how it happened during the Writers Guild strike, right? So, uh, how what? But maybe because we don't know who wrote it. I don't know if that makes sense, if that makes a difference. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's just a lot. So, I'm surprised that SAG is not doing it, or like WGA is not doing an investigation on that. But I don't know. Should I be surprised? Maybe that's not what they do. Maybe I don't know how that works. So Jay Leno had this to say. I don't have I don't have the exact. She's like, I need attention. Take it into my face. Uh, um, he was saying that basically being humble is how you succeed. You need to know what you know and what you can do, and then you need to know what you can't do and what is not your place and what other people can do better. And that's what he was saying, like he hired the right cinematographer, the right director, the right cameraman, the right this and that, and you surround yourself with people who really know what they're doing at their specific skill set, and you know your skill set, And that's the combination. It's like a collaboration, you work together versus, and I thought when I was hearing that, it wasn't related to Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. He said that he hasn't followed that because he's like, "We have wildfires, we have bigger things to be worried about." Um, but I think, like, this story is bigger than just, like, 2 celebrities fighting, but that technically, that's what it is, so, yeah. But he has, like, just the basic thing that I think we all, if we sit a moment, we all would agree on, right? Like, you, whether you're a business owner or a filmmaker or whatever, you just hire the right people. You can't do all the jobs the right way. I will say from my experience, of directing and acting, a lot of people have done that, or like a handful, quite a lot of handfuls of people have done that. But it's really hard. And what I noticed from that, and so like with Blake being involved in wardrobe and producing and directing and acting and writing and rewriting and all these things, putting aside to how she was taking over the movie from, that person that was supposed to do it, and those people that were hired for that, take away from that, but in her mind, like, she can't actually do all those things well because they're different mindsets and it requires different skill set. Like, you might think you can do a one person show and you can be all the different things, but truly to be good at something, maybe at most two things. And yeah, from my experience as a directing and having written this stuff and then directing and acting in that, I've done it a couple of times, but one specific time, it was like I had quite a lot of dialogue and I was a mm, secondary character. Um, I remember feeling like literally it took completely different sides of my, not even sides, but completely different parts of my brain to do each. Like, as the director, like, you are more analytical, you are not emotional, you are completely in the moment, seeing the logistics of it, not of, like, the project, but, like, of the scene of what's happening in front of you, like, potentially blocking or, like, being on your actors, like, because that's, like, ultimately, like, you have to be so present with the actors, again, to bring out their best performance if they're struggling or, if there's, like, a misunderstanding or whatever. And then as the actor, you're fully emotion. As an actor, you're fully emotion, and you immerse yourself in that character that you have, and you're not you. You're that character when you're acting. I'm sorry if she's, like, really loud. Um, and it is almost opposite. And then to pull in all the other things, yeah, that's a lot. And to do it in on one project and to this scale of a project, and to also keep in mind why you're doing it, the purpose and the survivors and, like, the audience and all this, it's just so much. It's so much. You can't do it right. Um, so yeah, hire the right people. In a business, the same thing. I've heard, excuse me, from great, like, business owners that I've talked to, um, you need to hire the right people and let them have their portion of that pie of the business. Like, you need to trust them and you need to empower them, but it's on them. It's on them when they fail, it's on them when they succeed, and, well, it's on you when they fail, really. Um, yeah, but, like, yeah, sorry, I think I'm I'm saying too much of that. Maybe we're calming down. Okay, just a couple more things. Literally 2 more things and a half. So, this is, well, one big thing and then 2 little things. The Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. So like I said, the boycott Super Bowl trend or hashtag is, I think, around the cheating, not around them. but it seems like some people are tired of seeing I have not watched a single game, but some people are tired of seeing her, like, "Why do we need to watch Taylor Swift? What does she have to do with football?" But I also would say that some people are watching football because of that, and I think that's why they do that, because there's a lot of, people that love her that are excited and watch it purposely to, like, catch a glimpse, like, "What is she saying? How did she react to this?" Or whatever, I don't know. I haven't seen I guess I haven't seen these videos, these, games. And it's bringing people together more too, people that, like, could care less about football but love Taylor, or music or whatever, or celebrity, and people who love football, and they can, like, at least coexist and watch the same screen at the same time, you know? So yeah, but recently, this last Sunday game, there was a trend, like, and I don't know, anyone can, like, jump in if they know, but apparently she was trying to, like, get his attention away to her. I don't know. Thoughts on that? I guess I have no thoughts. I just wanted to put that out there. I think I made a video. I don't think I released it. It was supposed to be a podcast, and I made a couple of videos about them. One about her and her discography, and then another one about them together when he defended her from that one comedian, defending her from this person, this bad comedian. That said nothing. Actually, his joke wasn't about her. It was towards the NFL. The NFL was the butt of the joke, but she didn't look pleased. And then Travis Kelsey sounded like a teenage boy that hasn't grown up to know how to truly defend his partner and how to be respectful in doing so. He's no Justin Baldoni for sure, but they're both young and younger, I think, at heart, or like not as I wanna say not as emotionally mature, but I don't know, just from what I've heard them how I've heard them talk independently or, recently about each other. So, yeah, but, whatever. Different people defend people different ways. I don't think that you should put someone down. It really bothered me so much that he was saying some ugly things about that comedian that I don't even know, I'm sorry. But it didn't that's not even the point, that it doesn't matter if he's huge, which I think he's considered pretty big, or he's not huge. Like, you should not treat people badly. And also, he didn't really, like, attack her. He attacked the freaking NFL. How did it become about her being slighted, right? Is that the word, slighted? So that's kind of my 2 cents on them too. I loved her music and songwriting between Lover and I can appreciate Dead Poets Society. There's some really, really good songs, but I was already coming out of being into her world. But yeah, Lover and what was the one with Exile? Folklore? Yeah. And she brought me back to songwriting in a different way. I saw songwriting in a different way. I used to just write songs like, "Okay, well, this came out, this is it." And sometimes it did work, and sometimes, like, no, okay, I can actually sit down and think about this and change the lyrics and think about what I'm trying to say, or just play the piano and see what sounds come out, whatever. So I appreciate her. I appreciate her talent. She has talent. I also say that that's not why she's famous. Not sorry. She would be famous anyways. That's not why she's mega famous. Marketing. And then really the light bulb turned on. I said this before I found this out, but her mom was her mom met her dad, I think, or they worked at the same firm. Um I think, I don't know. But anyways, her mom was a marketing person. Yeah. So, and I'm sure she learned very quickly. She was very determined and she was talented, and she knew, or her mom or whoever knew her niche, found a niche, went with it. Boom. I never was into her at the beginning because she spoke so badly about other girls and other people. Like, it was that kind of like, again, also bullying, catty, kind of immature, like, "Oh, this girl took my boyfriend and we hate her." And like she is trash because of that or whatever. I'm like, I never saw people like that, never saw things that way. That's why I hung out with adults more, because I could hear like stories of the olden days or whatever. And yeah, that I don't know. And I guess that's how I learned about I saw like this glimpse into adulthood and like how adults think and humanity, and I think maybe that contributed to my love for psychology. All right, so this is the big one. And after this, we only have I'm going to mention the 90 days, but most people that know me now, I think, and watching are because of the whole Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively thing. So this is the big one, the voice note. Um, a lot of people are commenting, and I'll start with this. Interesting comment. I find them interesting. I find them Well, I personally find them wrong, mostly. So a lot of people are talking like he's bowing down to her. He's over the top. There's a lot of over the top, and it's interesting because people who've worked as actors, been actors themselves, or with actors, or in that world, they keep saying like it's not over the top. Like, you have to understand actors; they're emotional and sentimental, and blah, 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 blah. And also directors even more, they have to like, connect to their actors and so forth. Although that is true, and I agree with that. I think this over the top notion comes also from our inexperience with people who are in touch with their feelings, who are securely attached, who have done the work or have been products of healthy environments and healthy um, like surroundings and so forth. Um, but even those people have their own work to work on, etc. So I think it's a lack of exposure to how we should, how we can, how yeah, to treat one another ultimately, and to that level of kindness and compassion, of empathy, of understanding and being present with someone else and their experience and validating that person's experience, whether or not we agree, and disagreeing if we do disagree in a respectful way, in a non-triggered way, and in a very connecting, validating, emotional, because we're emotional human beings, way. Dr. Kirk Honda has spoken about how he, as a product of society, he couldn't cry. He had to teach himself how to cry again as a man. And if I find which specific video, he makes so many. If I find that, I'll link it below. But um, it's such a wonderful insight into a man's world, honestly, into that part of a man's world. And Justin has, I think he has spoken of the same thing, that he had this like, you don't call the girl, you play these games, and you are don't show emotion, and you don't cry, um and crying is one thing. Crying is literally our evolution to signal to each other that we need help so we can survive, so the human race can survive. So it's interesting that men have been increasingly, decreasingly, but have been conditioned so much not to cry. Big boys don't cry, or in Fergie's example, big girls don't cry either. Um, but we need to cry. It's healthy, like, for our internal system. It lets out a lot of like it rebalances hormones, so like stress hormones and stuff. But also it's primarily to signal to other humans, hey, I'm going through something. I need help. Because we're social creatures. We are not islands. We're not I forget if it's a crocodile or alligator, but one is more social. The mom doesn't let the pups, I think. stays with them, and the other just like gives birth, lays the egg or whatever, and see ya. And as humans, we're together, and we can't survive alone, not for long, and definitely we can't thrive. We cannot thrive alone. Um, Side note, kind of a darker note, but in psychology class, I remember the experiment that kind of showed that babies can, you know, I don't think I'm supposed to say the word, without being hugged, without being touched, without being held, even if they got food and all the other stuff. And yeah, and I don't think, especially in the US, I don't think there's not even close to enough human touch. And human touch is like seen in such a vilified way, like this whole sh stuff too. It's like eh, it's a whole other conversation that will make this too long, but um human touch in a very respectful and healthy way. There's a non-charged version of that I think, like, in the US, from what I've seen and noticed and heard other people also talk about, it's just not common. It's like people talk like you can't have, opposite gender friends, and you can't have this and you can't have that, and that's, you guys hugging each other is wrong and means something else. Like, so just basic human stuff, healthy human stuff, is oftentimes discarded or vilified, or so I think this goes into the emotional part, the emotional language, the tone, him being in touch with emotions and really listening to Blake's emotions. I think lost a lot of people in this one. The other comments are like he has no self-respect, or he has to learn self-respect, no personal professional boundaries, or he has to learn those, and he's spineless, and kissing her butt. Um, the boundaries thing is that's the tricky thing with this case. That's tricky because these are actors and this is filmmaking, and what's professional in filmmaking is more human than what you would find in corporate world. Corporate world is like robots, and you have like huge personal bubble most of the time, and you don't cross those lines. Literally, actors cross those lines just by the sheer fact of being the characters and interacting with each other. It doesn't have to be romance, it can be fighting, it can be whatever, it can be, having an interview or whatever, but they have to connect and they have to be there with each other in that experience, on a personal level, and they need to invest their personal self into this. And same with filmmakers. Different directors do things differently. Different actors, all of that can vary from set to set. But the professional and personal boundary thing is different than what most of America, most of the world experiences. No, not most of the world, because in other places around the world, even in corporate settings, it is not quite as sterile. Um, but yeah, I wonder if this comment is relating to to it being 2 a.m. I don't know who started the conversation, but it was in his screenshot of the text messages with the Khaleesi stuff in his lawsuit. That's where this is coming from. And they were talking before the voice note. Because he was responding to in his voice note to her text message around the same time, around 2 a.m. Um, which was even later if she was in New York. It was even later for her. It was like 5 a.m. I don't know. Or maybe she was here where did they start filming? I don't know, but, I don't think they had started filming. 'Cause he was talking about, like, "Can't wait to spend more time with you and basically meet you," because they developed this relationship and this connection, they bonded, for their characters and to work together, they bonded over text messages and voice notes to that point, he says that in the voice note. So, excuse me, but yeah, the 2 AM, I don't know, to many of us in the film world, and I'm not currently in the film world, but to many of us, it's not really a flag. Because like, he could have been on set from another, project, or he would so many things, so many things. So, yeah, hours are crazy sometimes, and, yeah, so but yeah, it's not really great. I would imagine they're both kind of just trying to, oh, thank you. Oh, that's, like, that made me feel so just warm inside. Thank you. But yeah, I think the 2 AM is just, we shouldn't be looking into it that much. And I'll get into the voice note of things, but there are some moments when I can see people thinking like, "Oh, but he sounded flirty, or he sounded sweet here. Like, he was, more than, you know, professional or whatever, kind, or and I'll get to those. Overall, that's not my impression though. So yeah. But as far as like being spineless and having no self-respect, oh my gosh, that drives me crazy. Talk about toxic masculinity and his work on healthy masculinity being like not reaching these people that say he has no self-respect. Or talk or like healthy human regardless of gender. Um, I think he had a lot of self-respect. Someone with self-respect doesn't put up boundaries and walls as you would think. That's dismissive, avoidant, or other things. Um, Self-respect is being kind with other people, is being attentive, is apologizing when you're wrong, is apologize and this was beautiful, like, he apologizes because she felt a certain way, and that was valid to him because it is valid. So and he doesn't apologize, "Oh, I'm sorry if I made you feel that way." No, he truly apologizes like a true apology. Also, Dr. Kirkhana goes into, like, true apology is, like, exhausting for almost all of us, but, like, he says, "I apologize because I made you feel this way." So, someone with self-respect is secure, and he was secure enough to say that. He was secure enough to be present with her and her emotion and to validate her and her experience. Is fully aware of himself and is able to not go from in an insecure place. Again, I'll get back into that. Yeah, spineless and kiss buddying and all that. Um, I think it was a little bit as far as like any director with any actor. At this point, I personally didn't hear anything that was over the top in that sense. Um, I don't think he was spineless, but I have wondered when I was reacting to the voice note. I did wonder, and I might have said it here too, is the frog in boiling water effect. Did she victimize herself and, you know, prey on his empathy and prey on his kindness and compassion? Excuse me, thinking, like people are thinking, like spineless, weak, no self-respect, blah blah blah. And like he was talking from his perspective with someone who was equally um empathetic, or not empathetic, respectful, or I don't know, vulnerable, honest. That's what I was going for. And Yeah, so, he has a lot of friends and family. We see, like, he posted, when they found out they were pregnant. I think it was the first time on Wayfair. I think you can find these videos, and it was so cute how people loved them and got so excited for them. They have a lot of people around them, and so he might be used to interacting with people who also take accountability, who also have done the work on themselves and are these human beings that are respectful um, and secure, and will also, he can trust that if she's wrong, she'll admit that she's wrong. That is actually like a cornerstone of secure attachment. Remember, it's coming back to me slightly. But yeah, it's you trust that the other person is going to want to work through things, you know, to a reasonable extent. You trust that another person is going to be honest and truthful, that they're going to be vulnerable, that, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's where he was operating from. I don't think he was spineless. I don't think he was like, oh my gosh, like Blake Lively, I need to like cater to her completely, and I don't have a leg to stand on and all that, because um although there is a little bit of that from like the director side of things where you do kind of have to do that, um overall, that we I didn't hear that in this. I don't know if I'm saying any of this correctly. But here's the voice note. So and I'm not, obviously I'm not playing it or whatever, but these are my afterthoughts notes. So he starts with this apology, where he took, before he did this voice note, he sat with her long text message, and he took her feelings and what she told him, processed it, and took it in, and then came to her validating her experience, which I think is important to say, particularly in this case where it's about SH. And there's a lot of talk like, well, is SH only the person meant it, or is it enough for the person to feel uncomfortable to be ruled as SH? And I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, I'm not aware of the legal, you know, the legal side of that, the legal response to that. Um, from non-legal standpoint, I would say it's a fine line. I think yes, no, and both, and neither. Not neither. Yes, no, or both. Um, because a person's experience is valid. And a lot of the Me Too movement, I think, and all this stuff came from, um, some of it came from like just blatant things that we all agree on. But some things came from these nuanced parts of, well, people have done this for so long and didn't think that was inappropriate. And so, in that sense, we do need to evolve, and we do need to ask, like, and I'm sure he asks himself, if he's the person that we see him consistently being, he's asking himself, you know, did I actually make her feel that way? Did I do something that I shouldn't have? Um, and I feel like we should be asking that more than like the stuff we're asking sometimes, because a person's experience is valid, and we need to start from there. It's also valid that their experience might be a projection, that their experience might be distorted. That's the truth of trauma. That's the truth of anything that triggers you to that level. Things that we perceive aren't always true. And this whole thing, too, makes me think or allude to, in arguments as couples, oftentimes both people will have completely different recollections of what happened, and sometimes even, what they're fighting for is different. But even if, let's say, they're fighting for, they understand and they agree on what they're fighting about, but their recollection is vastly different or opposite sometimes. And I remember, because I started this program for marriage and family therapy. I remember in one of the classes talking about this, of how like the therapist has to sit with both because the therapist wasn't there. And as a whole, we kind of know like the truth is generally in the middle. It's like a little bit from each side and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's more about why each person felt the way they feel or saw or interpreted the things that they interpreted. And then, there's different approaches to figuring out, well, what actually happened. Um, and I think a lot about that with this. And that's kind of how I see this whole like, was it SH? Wasn't it? Did it happen? The video that we saw, some people saw that it was, some or like, look, she's uncomfortable. Some people said like it wasn't, like he clearly didn't mean it. And it's like, well, both are true. She was uncomfortable at times. We don't know why. Like I said about the Lie to Me episode, um, we can't tell people are lying. There's no like, oh, if they're looking this way or that way or whatever. We can tell when people are uncomfortable, but we can't tell why. We don't know the truth. And so she could be uncomfortable. Like she was, I remember with when he says it smells good, she was uncomfortable, but we also heard very clearly that he meant her spray tan that she brought up, and his tone of voice was really just like nothing. And he also said it smells good instead of you smell good, like she claimed. So I what I saw with that like little moment was she misheard it. It to me that looked very much like, oh, we just caught like a distortion on camera, because I think I don't think she's necessarily lying and using this per se, not all of it, or certain times, or some certain points, but that's what it looked like to me. And you can tell me I'm wrong, and I might be wrong. I'm just saying again, like that's what it looked like to me. Like she took what he said in a very different way than what how he said it and how he meant it. And that's like the beauty of being on the other side of the camera, and we are there. We can see both sides. If we allow ourselves to see both sides, if we don't go after her or after him, like, no, he made her feel uncomfortable. Like, you see, this is proof that, or maybe before the scene or, another time, like, and so she was already entering this hesitantly and blah, blah, blah. Well, could be true. Um, but what I saw was that moment, like, I think she heard it as you smell good and as more flirty or like creepy or whatever. Um, yeah. So I love that he started with validating her. Sorry, yeah, long way around to say he truly took her experience in. And so, like, if she would have brought up to him, hey, like, I feel uncomfortable or this, as she claims that she did, it sounds from this voice note. Again, we don't know everything. It's one voice note, one video, and, a bunch of screenshots and text messages and emails and a bunch of their words, separately. But again, based on the information we have, it seems like his pattern is that he takes accountability. And based on the information that we have, if we look back at other interviews of him or other things that he said, and so he would he internalizes it, processes it, and then like, sorry, you felt that. Sorry, I made you feel that. And then he says, this is beautiful. I don't know. I got giddy at a lot of this because um as the like psychology nerd and what is it? Apasionado. It's not the word. Like, but yeah, I love psychology, passion, whatever, humans. Um because we like are trying so hard to love each other and to like be loved and be happy, and we're trying so hard and we miss it so much more than we hit the mark on that. Anyways, So he says, takes a lot of trust and vulnerability. I feel very grateful that you feel safe enough to tell me that. Um, that's how you feel. And oh, that's so beautiful. That's one of the this voice note to me was like beautiful. But um it's not only validating and making her feel safe, not in a, I'm gonna take advantage of you feeling safe with me way. It kind of is the opposite, from what we've seen like in other instances. But he says it like because I think we do see that she has, at least in her speech, she has a lot of insecurity. So he by now for sure was like being hit with this all the time. And like he took the time to acknowledge and double down on like don't feel insecure about this. Again, this is how I took it. Also, it reminds me of this um video or podcast, whatever, Simon Sinek. He was talking about how his one friend didn't tell him that they were going through a hard time, and he Simon got offended, and he said, like, "You even took away from me the ability to help you," or something, I don't know. Like, you the completely less spoken offense of leaning on your friends and loved ones, of telling people, "Hey, I need help," or whatever, and how we don't often think what an offense to the other person that we're supposedly sparing, supposedly we're, um, you know, doing them a favor, or not burdening them and so forth. Again, like there are people who feel burdened by that. Again, from the attachment style universe, like the dismissive avoidant feels burdened by other people's feelings and experiences and stuff because of how they're trained and how they processed dealing with things like that. Um, and and it's not like a selfish, I mean, it is, but it's not like, a malicious thing. It's just like it's kind of happening. It's how they learn to like keep themselves safe. And so like we often talk about that side of things. Don't be a burden. We don't talk about this, and I love that Simon Sinek started talking about this, and that's what that part of the voice note makes me think of. He says, "No, I apologize." He says he doesn't say, "No, I apologize if I made you feel XYZ," but he truly apologizes, taking accountability, admitting when he's wrong, and that he often is wrong and fails, and he will always own up to it and apologize. And brings up his wife, brings up Ryan at the end, says, "Send Ryan my love," or "my best," or whatever. Um, he says, "I'm sorry I made you," because someone said this, like he brought up his wife in that video. He brings up his wife here. And again, like just, tone of voice, body language, etc. Yeah, it's not reliable, but also we're made as human beings to communicate, with all of this. So trust your ears and your eyes and stuff when you hear how someone says something. Like again, and if you're unable to see that, if you're feeling trigger, like there are ways to step out of that trigger. But yeah. Um like, he literally says, "I'm sorry I made you feel that way." That is a beautiful apology that would almost, like, if we had show of hands, I would say, show of hands, how many people do that, like, consistently. Like, it's really hard to do because we wanna defend ourselves. Like, "I'm sorry you feel that way." It's often what we say. It's really hard. It takes someone who's really secure to say, "I'm sorry I made you feel that way." That must have felt terrible, is how he continues. "I will for sure do better. That wasn't my best weekend, and I should have given it more time." And I included this because, again, for the spineless comments, um, he says he's sorry. He acknowledges and validates her experience and her feelings. And then he takes ownership that he could have done better and he didn't. And then he also, not as an excuse, but as a reasoning, because that is part of an apology. That is how you build trust and security with one another and as human beings, is hearing like the reason, you know? He doesn't go into like super details, but he says it wasn't my best weekend and I should have given it more time. He gives enough information to be like, hey, you know, it's not that I just didn't want to or whatever. So it gives context for the other person, so it's not like just in the void. And so that, because that's how the other person learns to trust, if you give them um the information, Um, and then he talks about how he didn't need her, friend and husband to double or triple down on the rewrite because it's really good. This place, like my projection, I think I'm projecting where I'm like, he sounds uncomfortable, doesn't he? It sounds like he's forcing this one a little bit. He sounds like a director hat for this one, but I think it's still genuine, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's still genuine, but like how much genuine and how much trying to manage his project and the people involved, and so there are no hurt feelings. That's kind of what this part came across to me more. So it's like maybe appeasing, maybe apologizing and thinking his initial notes on what she wrote were wrong. And so someone said a comment on one of the videos about this, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting take. Again, that frog in boiling water, that someone who's a survivor of I think narcissism is was saying in the comment, like, they found that like later they look back and that they had to apologize for things that weren't even their fault. I think this happens more often than not. And again, I think we also have to like discern and critically think when we're in a situation like this, because I think it's important just for like our personal lives, right? If we think that every time that we don't agree with someone's experience is that they're manipulating us, that's not going to be that's not helpful. It's going to cost us all our relationships because that's always going to happen. Like, there's no relationship where you're going to have to apologize for how someone's experience is based on what you did, where you disagree. But again, is the context. Does that happen all the time? And can you like apologize by validating their experience without taking away from your truth? And I think he did it so perfectly in this. But I do wonder if like this part with like you didn't have to, have Taylor and Ryan, or I would have thought this without them. I wonder if this is kind of like him questioning himself, him maybe feeling a little insecure again because they are big, huge stars, much huger. Taylor Swift is huger than all of them, um, to an extent. I mean, in the past couple of years. Um, and so, yeah, and Ryan Reynolds too. I even though I don't watch him, but yeah, apparently he's big. And so he probably is like, wait, did I get that wrong? And another person said in the comments in one of the videos, like, maybe that's why all the other directors didn't take her notes or didn't take them officially because they sucked. I mean, well, that's a possibility, right? So maybe his initial instinct was right. And maybe he went back on that because of the pressure. Maybe he went back on that because he felt he questioned himself like, oh, was I wrong? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I didn't read, her take the first time around the right way or whatever. I don't know. And then he talks about excited to go through the whole excited to go through the whole movie with you. Um, I don't know. Again, comments, thoughts below. Do you think this meant I'm excited to like collaborate? Like I invite you into the creative directing, writing process. whole movie with you, or excited to go through the whole movie with you. The first time, I guess it sounded a little bit like that, but I think I projected into that based on all the discourse online, everyone that's reacting to things, that's how they took it. But I actually don't remember my initial experience. Maybe it's on caught on camera. I kind of take it now though as like go through the movie, like make this project with you. Like you would say that to another actor if you're an actor, to director to an actor, actor to director, producer, cameraman, whatever. Like I think that's what he meant. Not sure though. Because he says, just excited to spend time with you, be in her sphere and presence and sharing the creative juices that he says, even that sounds terrible. And I don't think that should be like used against him, because that is absolutely hypocritical of all of us. There's no way all of us have not said things that sounded like, wait, I didn't mean it that way. I mean, it's a phrase for a reason. That is a phrase for a reason, that I didn't mean it that way. He didn't even say that though. He just said like, that sounds terrible. I mean, it can sound like kind of disgusting too. Like we're reading it probably in that other realm, but it could be like the scar tissue, and oh my gosh, just that's an inside thing. Like yeah. Anyways, of humanity. So just like like literal, like when you're cooking a turkey or something, those like meat juices or whatever. Like, so, who knows what he's thinking at 2 a.m. And don't read too much into that, because you don't know, and I think you'll read whatever you probably would. You'll read what you probably would think, and or what where you stand, if you like him or don't like him. That's how you'll read that, like most of this. So but yeah, when he said that though, I was like, oh, the world is going to like take that in an interesting way, I'm sure. But really what I hear is someone who's like hoping, or maybe for good or for bad, found a collaborator, and he's excited to like collaborate. Maybe he said in his lawsuit they talked so much, and when you find that, like as a collaborator myself, as a creative person myself, like when you find that, it's like such a flow. It's not quite a high, because it's like steady. It's not like whew, um but it is in the sense that it feels so good, and you have ideas and they have ideas, and it combines, and you see things in different ways. It's amazing. So that's what I heard him talk about. She's back. This is a late night for her. Oh my gosh, crap. um but yeah. So sorry, now I'm like distracted by that. Usually like when I have done like other videos, at least I would like put things on her cage, but I want to get through this, and I don't have too much left. And yeah. So yeah, that's how I take it, that he's excited to do this project with her as the actress that she is, and have her collaborate, and have her come to him with her thoughts and so forth. And excited to spend time with her. That's one of the things that I said, well, people can take that and run with it and say that's like flirty, like see proof there was some relationship. But again, he talks about his wife, and again, it's how he talks in all of this. But that could be true. That could be true. The thing that yeah, the thing with this is it's like, yeah, it doesn't sound the best, it doesn't sound the worst. This one is like definitely going to be like a potentially a soundbite for both sides, or at least the other side of this conspiracy, that they had this whole relationship affair, or just crush. She had a crush, and he whatever. I don't know, whatever. I still don't buy that. I'm still not on board with that. I'm sorry. But yeah, um and he says that he does need to say something because he's like about to go. He's like, I do need to say something. And he starts apologizing for others, for other men, for other people. And he says, I'm so sorry you have been through what you've been through with these other filmmakers and producers and whoever the people that you worked with. It just P word me off. I think he said P word F. Those D heads that I'm just still blown away. This is the industry that we're in, and that you've experienced that as well. That you've experienced all of that on top of, like, this is the industry. Again, I would love to have the possibility of show of hands. Who who thinks, and this is like not a digging question, not a sarcastic question, but who thinks that she has had SH experience in other, or you like verbal, non-verbal, physical, whatever, any kind of, inappropriate stuff happened to her on sets. I hesitate to say that she has, because of how powerful she was from before she was on Gossip Girl, because of her family. And so my take at this time, with the knowledge that I have, is I don't believe she has. Um, I think in the public media, I think how people have spoken about her in the public eye, and so forth. But maybe she has. She was also so young, and she looks like someone who is naive, and naive enough to make jokes that are, that yeah, not great jokes, and naive to make comments and do things that it doesn't seem like she understands. And I think her that are, bad. And I think her naive, that naive side might have experienced some things. I don't know, because there's apparently a blind item thing that basically alludes to her having slept with a lot of Hollywood or something. Part of me doesn't see that, but apparently if that's there, it's true. I don't know. Um, but I can also see her being taken advantage of, or like her thinking that, you know, I don't know. I can see she, again, in her 20s. Like, yeah, there's a lot that can be true in your 20s. And but you think, I think the issue is more so, even if she was a mean person, a mean girl, a this or that, and whatever, and even if she thought of sleeping around with everyone, whatever, that isn't happening anymore. But like the mean girl and things, like you would think that she would grow from that, but she's also still considerably young at 30 something too. She looks older, but she's younger than me, I believe. I think she's 36 or something. And yeah, but again, to go back to the voice note, that is so beautiful. I've heard like comments about like, oh my gosh, like it's so stupid. He's so stupid for for saying sorry for other people. Like he didn't have to spineless, blah, blah, blah. I think this is what you say. This is how you interact with people. This is how you are respectful of people. He didn't say sorry. This goes, I think, a lot around like how women saying sorry all the time, that kind of thing, and unlearning to say sorry for your existence, basically. Yes, that's not what he's doing here. He's saying sorry, like, I feel bad, like you shouldn't have gone through that. And I think, again, this whole moment is compassion for her. It's not putting himself down or being spineless because he's apologizing for other people. I think, uh, once again, he's saying sorry that you've been through this. That these people, like, this is what I'm working not to be. This is what I'm working for, this to like do projects with people that are not like this, to have this like movement in Hollywood where it's not like this. So that's my take on that. And then he says, "But that's not at all gonna be or will be, and hopefully that's not been the experience with me. There's nothing more exciting to me that I get to work with Blake Lively." That's kind of cute, actually. Not in retrospect, but at that time it was probably cute. "And have her, all of her. That's what I want." Another moment that people might latch on to, like, oh, he was being flirty or inappropriate. I'll get to that. But the first part of that, that's not at all what he hopes that he has been or will be or whatever. And him trying to reassure her, it's not gonna be like that. This experience will be different for you. And later he talks about, like, I hope this experience will be healing from that kind of those kind of experiences. And I full-heartedly believe him. Um, this might it's an interesting moment in this whole voice note, in this whole context of this case, because he says, "Hopefully that's not been the experience with me." So up to April 2023, there was no mention to him, apparently, no mention to him of anything that she found uncomfortable until this rooftop scene rewrite. That was the first time that she ghosted him because she felt hurt. She didn't know how to handle it. Who knows? A lot of us are speculating on that and emotional immaturity and whatever. I think it's immaturity or yeah, not immature. Yeah, I don't know, lack of towards being secure. But anyways, but also you can be secure and you can have those moments. It depends on how, like, all the different pieces of it. Um and I wondered this from the beginning. How much pressure did she have from Taylor and Ryan, and especially Taylor? Because Taylor is like huge. She wrote The Man. If I was a man, you would say different things about me. You would call me a baller, not a B or whatever. I forget. So again, there's that side of feminism that's going a little too extreme, and maybe we've needed that also, to like go forward to that extreme to like reel it back in. Like, okay, not everyone's doing that, not everyone's like saying it that way, not everyone, etc. Um, but yeah, I wonder if Taylor pressured Blake. If Blake wrote this scene and then later gave credit to Ryan, so it sounds like, yeah, we worked together and whatever. There's numerous reasons I can think of that she would give Ryan the credit when she indeed was actually the one that wrote that rooftop scene. Maybe she felt like it wasn't received well. Maybe she, um, I feel like that's highly unlikely. I think it's something around like if she wrote it but gave Ryan the credit in that interview, which it seems like she blurted it out and she's like, "Oh crap, what did I say?" So I think that's the truth, but we don't know. But if she wrote it and gave him the credit, I think it's maybe like to the parts of like being controlling and her trying to appease her husband, like give him credit. Maybe he butts in on her stuff, but on her projects, but he doesn't on hers or whatever, and she needed to say that. I don't know. Can't think of right now, but there are like a couple, like three or so different reasons why I thought if she wrote the scene, why she gave him credit. Um, but if Ryan wrote the scene and she took the credit, that also that's a whole other thing. It's weird, and that sounds kind of creepy that, she was pressuring her director, lying that she wrote it, but her husband actually wrote it, and she was pressuring her director of her project that her husband wasn't involved in whatsoever, technically, legally, um, because again of her husband being controlling, of her being quote unquote afraid of him or feeling pressure from him. But if we go with She Wrote It, Truly, which I don't know. Gosh, I have no idea. Can't land on one. But if we go with She Wrote It, like, it could be also that because she says something in that text message, like, they kept asking me. And I've been there where your friends, whoever, mom, it's like, "Oh, did you hear back from that job? Did you hear about this?" Like, "What did they say? Did they say anything? Did this happen yet?" Whatever. So I can see, because she literally also said it in her text message to him before this voice note, that maybe she had a lot of pressure from them, and this controlling side could be in part from that. The level of control and takeover and stuff, and this scene in particular, it could be coming from that side of, she was extremely pressured to, like, mm, so he was in turn pressured through her by these external forces, by super, super, food for thought right now, super opinion over here, complete opinion, not fact. Could be fact, but complete opinion right now. Again, my view and understanding of Taylor Swift and her fight for, you know, her style of feminism, that's what's playing in my brain when I think about this whole rooftop scene scenario, and how the pressure was coming, is like going, and all this stuff. And so Blake, even though she called herself Khaleesi and all that stuff, I think that's on her, but she could have also been highly pressured. Like, see, he's not respecting you as a woman, that kind of thing. The second part of that, I get to work. There's nothing more exciting to me than I get to work with Blake Lively and have her, all of her. So the first part kind of reads. It didn't sound like that though. It reads like this, like, giddy, teenager boy, kind of like with a crush. Um, but he didn't sound like that in his actual real life voice note. Um, and have her, all of her. Um, what I heard when I heard this was, like, oh no, again, people that are on the Blake camp of things are going to take it like it's not great sounding, right? Like, have all of her in a bodily way. What I hear is, again, my bias on being on the other side of things, is he's saying, like, all of her creative input, all of her creative force that he earlier had said that she is. Hi, Mr. Beer. Um, and yeah, but I mean, it doesn't sound, it's not the best choice of words. He could have ended that, like, if that's what he meant, he could have said that. But I mean, again, when we talk to each other, like, I don't know how many times you talk with your, coworker, friend, whatever, and think, like, unless you're at work, and you should, if you're on your work computer, you should always assume that everything is monitored, looked at, or potentially looked at, saved, etc. But like this, and I mean, this is a hybrid version of that. You're not gonna think, they for sure didn't think it would be subpoenaed and revealed to the whole world. Neither of them ever thought this. I feel like I can put all my money on that. So yeah. So maybe that's why he didn't elaborate and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry. Thank you for covering this. We've all heard so much, and I appreciate you creating a space we can talk. I might sound like ungrateful. I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but I wish people would talk more. I love seeing everyone's comments and thoughts. And I, again, stressing this again, like, I would love to hear people from, both sides, as much as I think there is plenty of discussion, just, if we're as much on the Justin side more. Um, but yeah, thank you. I've loved that. I love, like, building a community is like a dream. Has been a dream since I wanted to be a singer, and yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. Taylor Swift already got that. So yeah, awesome. Um, but yeah, so then almost at the end, almost at the end, I'm sorry. Trying to implement and add her notes in his draft is what he said, that he hasn't given her or sent her the, rewrite or whatever final draft because he was doing this and hasn't had the chance to send it to her yet. Um, and I mean, I feel like, okay, this is business talk. And um, this one was the one place that opened a lot of questions for me. We know so little about this whole process of how this went down, the rewrite, and how his conversation with her, what she was asking for, why did he need to send her a final draft? It kind of honestly sounds a little odd to me that she gave him her notes. He said, "Hey, great, it'll probably be a combination of mine and yours, or what there was of the writers and yours." And he probably thought, like, "I'll send you the final draft, like, so she can prepare for the scene." Usually, my experience, my understanding, and my knowledge is, the actor doesn't need to approve their rewrite being incorporated. And that's kind of how I'm taking this and how it sounds to me, that she was, like, asking for her approval of her notes that she gave to her director and filmmaker of the movie. And so if that's the case, that didn't sit well with me, and I can't hear it any other way. Um, because he says sorry that, it took so long basically or something. And then he says again that sorry that's happened to you before, like, all this stuff. And then I think basically alluding, like, you might think this is, more of the same, but it's not, kind of trying to say that to her. Um, yes, that's a tiny bit of reading into it, because yeah, but again, it's, what's that? It's not critical thinking, it's, educated guess. Yeah, I'm educatedly reading into it based on everything else. And this pretty long voice note, 6 minutes and almost 7 minutes. And then he says, "I hope this experience will be healing in some way. That's all I want." Like, healing to her experiences before, of her not being taken seriously, of, all the things that she explained in her text message. I want this movie to be healing. I want this movie to be commercial just like you. I have a caveat based on what he's spoken many times about Wayfair and the movies that they make, and affect people and touch people. And I want to walk you through my whole plan. Which, that last sentence was interesting to me. I, again, don't take it like he's inviting her in to collaborate per se, to take over. There's a difference between collaborating and taking over. I learned the hard way, and my crew and actors learned the hard way, where I need to have boundaries for their sake and mine as well, where, yeah, people can take advantage of that. I was on a 48, and I felt the same, like, oh, okay, like, we'll collaborate, be co-directors, etc. And I think the one person, the co-director, was going to write, and I was just going to direct and be also the producer. And which is a weird, producer is a weird word on 48s. Yeah. And then they kind of had just different visions. They didn't I hate when this happens. They kept them to themselves in a way, or some of it, and then I know for sure, like, I went to bed and for, like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, because my heart, like, was palpitating, and it's like, "Okay, I need to stop. I have been up for 48 hours." And, my notes as the producer and main director, were like kind of thrown out the window. Because I remember getting the footage, and I was also going to be the editor. Hello, 48. Again, this is I wasn't doing a Hollywood production or anything like this. And then I remember I got to the editing part, and so I can only imagine he didn't even see the final edit. Like, oh, his strength to see his movie that he didn't even know what it was going to look like except at the screening for the first time. But I got to have all the files on the laptop, and I was like, "What is this? I don't have." And it was like, "Okay, you went in another direction, but you didn't have enough coverage for me to cut back and forth." And because also there was a time limit that was very important. So I was so mad. And one of the scenes and the oh gosh, I don't even wanna talk about it. So triggering. But the downside was also that it cost as for them, because they talked about, like, it, made the movie cost more and people's time was taken more, because of the rewrites that she would have and all this stuff, and boy, do my actors and crew know that for that project. That was I think that was the only project, and I was like, "Whoa, yeah, too many cooks in the kitchen is never a good thing in movies, even though you want everyone equal and, peace, love, and compassion and all that stuff." Not on a movie set. On a movie set, it is so imperative that you have a top-down approach, because otherwise you get people that need to get to work at at 6 a.m., leaving the set at like 5 a.m., 5:30. Um, that was a lot on me, it was just it was an awful experience. Learn from it, and I mentioned it in a lot of my corporate interviews as a learning experience. But that's what I'm saying. Walk you through the whole plan, invite you in, collaborate, etc. Doesn't necessarily mean take over. Collaboration is you provide the notes, but ultimately I'm the director and etc. etc. And you respect my role. Like I respect you and your notes and all that. And it didn't go both way. That's I guess what's like this thing with this thing and with this thing with this thing. It's getting late. But it didn't go both ways. It didn't seem like she was receiving him, and also he was ultimately the decision maker, even if she was a producer by force. It seemed like either way she was executive producer at first, and then she really wanted to be a producer. The executive producer doesn't have that much input more than like budget, understanding the budget and so forth, and she could care less about the budget. um not in the storytelling part of things. So that's why she wanted the producer credit. And the thing that I want to say, and I'll get to the comments that came in a second. The thing that I wanted to say about this, I want this movie to be healing. I want this movie to be commercial, just like you. Chocolate broccoli, chocolate covered broccoli. He mentions that he wants to do broccoli movies, but not like broccoli, because who wants to eat broccoli except for Arena when she was younger? Because yeah, I just spoke to myself in third person or about myself. My mom made broccoli. My introduction to broccoli was very tasty. So I loved broccoli. And chocolate covered broccoli sounds disgusting, but it could work. Maybe raw broccoli. I can see how that could taste pretty good with chocolate. But that's his movies, which is interesting. And I guess this is maybe my emotional connection to Wayfarer, his production company, and to him is after this whole thing is like that's what I if why I got into filmmaking, that's exactly what I wanted to do. I remember talking to someone, and in here in Cleveland, like there is the horror scene is this is what you do, horror movies. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do anything negative and with like a negative energy or whatever. Like, no. Um I want to do inspiring things that you would often see in documentaries or so forth. Um, but I want to do them in a way that's in like easily digested by like the mass, you know, and so they can be exposed to that. I've always been a food for thought person or devil's advocate at times. And that was my mission. That's still, if I go back to directing and filmmaking, writing and so forth, like that's what I would want to do. And production company, I think Blake's relationship to directing, her thinking of herself as a director, which I think is more what she is than a producer, is me is my relationship to producing. It feels like too intimidating. Like that's not me. That's all too much for me. But I think I might be a little bit more on the producer side, maybe. I don't know. Like having a production company, I think I would love that. But it sounds so scary, so intimidating. And my experience with business is like I don't want to have anything to do with the business world. I want to be the creative. I want to be the visionary, whatever. But that's why you hire the business side of the business that you have. But yeah, so I think that's different than what she referred to, wanting a commercial movie, because what we see also after the result, and this is 2020 hindsight and vision, is she wanted a commercial movie, not something that will change the world, not something that was inspirational and healing. Yeah, affect people and touch people. She talked about that in interviews. I don't know. I can't tell how much she meant that for real. I will give her the benefit of the doubt that she also wants people to be moved in the movie theater or when they watch the movie. But I think her focus is so much more on, you know, pretty clothes or like specific clothes. You couldn't say necessarily pretty clothes in this movie. But it's not so much from like the purpose driven place. Ooh, low battery crap. I'm at the end. So I thought that was like important to mention. So before I get to the final like 5 points, um, he sounds like a dog that has been whooped, whooped. Placate her so she can stay in the movie. Sounds like he gave up and threw in the towel. Yeah, I was mentioning earlier, like that's what people take from this. I don't hear this in this voice note, especially at this time. I think he probably was at the end. He said, like, she can have 98% of this. Like, I give up. I can't do this anymore. So yeah, at that point, yeah. Um, but placate her to stay in the movie. Again, at this point, I don't think that was the case. But also that's kind of fine. I mean, I don't see something inherently wrong with that. If it's like you kind of have to do that in general. Um, I don't know. I think it's like an interesting power dynamic because she's so powerful, and yeah, I don't know. And if you wanted like this movie to touch more people, and he had the opportunity to cast her, which I personally think came through his co-host that left him high and dry. Um, Yeah, I think he was pressured to hire her. That's a theory. That's an unpopular theory, maybe that no one has. But finding that out with Liz Plank, I think is her name, and her connection with Ryan Reynolds, and consequently Blake Lively, and then the feminist, because her screen name on Instagram is like feminista something. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if he was pressured, like you need Blake Lively, and blah blah. And then he got like way in over his head and he's like, well, I have to make this work. It's gonna be fine. And then he just got more and more, like crap. This was not great. I wonder that. But yeah, so yeah, it could be, but I don't know. I personally don't think at this point that's what we hear with this voice note. And I think he just gave up because he felt like everyone was against him. Poor soul, he sounds defeated. Yeah, I don't think everyone. I think a lot of people were on his side. Like the editors kept like the producers, the Sony executives, so many people were on his side telling him, "Hey, she's taking over. Don't let her take over," and all that stuff. So it's interesting. I think he really was like giving her benefit of the doubt, or trying so much to work with her, and maybe at one point, or maybe even early, like it was like for her star power, and like, or maybe like a lot of this voice note sounds like he was excited, like, oh, I can really have this woman, collaborator on this movie that's so important for women. And I want that to be the case. I want a woman's voice to come through as he talked. I don't know. And then Mr. Beer loves Taylor, so it's scary to talk about this and see where it leads. Like your who you hang out with. Yeah, people will honestly eat you alive if you give them the chance. That sounds like a cynical point of view, Mr. Beer. Highly disagree, and that's the thing. He wasn't coming from that place, and people call him spineless or like, "Oh, I hope he learned his lesson." No, you do need to trust people. Not everyone's bad. A lot of people, and I think most people depends on how you like to your point, it matters who you hang out with, and it matters who you hang out with. And that's I said it earlier in my Taylor video, where she fits into this. I said like that's why maybe Selena Gomez and Taylor Swift aren't best friends anymore, because Selena Gomez seems to have gone to therapy and Taylor Swift has not seemed to go to therapy. And yeah, so he wasn't let go from Sony. He was let go from WME. Sony is the distributor, and even WME, the talent agency, was saying to them like, "Hey, but we don't have those receipts. This is kind of I would almost say hearsay at this point." Um, but yeah, they were saying like, "Yeah, this is what Blake and Ryan do, regardless if it's real or not. Like, they will find the scapegoat and blame it on them and save their behinds." But yeah, I don't think he was let go from Sony because he wasn't under Sony. They were just the distributor, and Sony like they had some executives on board, and then Blake brought in her own Sony executive on top of that. So I don't know. Sony is an interesting one in here. And yeah, so Sony at one point did turn around. Maybe that's what you're thinking of. Like, did kind of start being more on Blake's side after like way later into this. Um, I'm on Justin's side at this point. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Okay, so the final thoughts, and hopefully my battery won't die. If it's getting really close, I'm gonna have to change the scenery for a second and plug the laptop in. So yeah, show you my whole plan and the work we're doing with No More and my vision. You're the secret sauce. We're the secret sauce. Andy from Popcorn Planet said like, great that he, props to yourself, dude, too. Like, don't just like tell her how amazing she is. Like, you're amazing too. Like, own it. At that point, I was like, oh, that's a good point. I would have missed probably. But yeah, I feel like that's a little cheesy. Like, you're the secret sauce. I think that's director talk to an actor kind of thing. Kids all over. And then he said that, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go. You probably have all the kids all over you and a baby on your boob. And I was like, that's so funny that he said that word. And also, oh crap, how are they going to spin this one? Like, see, he said boob, he thought about her boobs. And you're listening to me ramble at 2 in the morning. I hope you're feeling better, and give Ryan my love. So is this where she had COVID and passed it on to her fourth child? Don't know his name, Alan or whatever. But yeah, again, give Ryan my love. Come on. Come on. Again, I think sometimes people are so much into the conspiracy theory and like, oh, everything's like just so twisted. And like he said that, but he knew it was going to get there. And like he said that to like deflect from it. Is not that complicated. Those people are rare in this world, and he is unlikely one of those people. Like, it is not that complicated. We need to take a breath sometimes and be like, hold on. I'm going into like conspiracy theory territory, and not the good kind, but like this is like imagination. Maybe you should be a writer kind of thing, like maybe I shouldn't write my own movies because we're just making stories up and scenarios up. I think him saying that is just as plain as what we read. I think it's like, yeah, go spend time with your kids and husband and, thinking of them and whatever. He's being like just normal to me. And he says, "Give Ryan my love." Like, 'cause at the beginning, I said something else, like, let's be a little bit more feet on the ground with this one. But yeah, and the boob thing, it's like, I don't know. I say boob too. Like I feel weird not saying boob, so I guess I'm immature. I feel like I was saying in my reaction, like, so we're all immature people that we can't say the other words, or the one other word, the other words that are not acceptable. No. But yeah, I think he's being like so like normal. And then thank you for sending me that. It means the world that you trust me with your feelings and your thoughts like that. So beautiful. I think this should be like taught in school of, hey, how do you apologize? This is not even the best top apology, but this is really high up. If we would apologize like this to people, to each other, and to our loved ones, even more so, and if we would be able to do this internal process of like taking our loved ones' point of view and experience and like sitting with it and really validating it to ourselves and to them. Not just to them, but to ourselves too. And be like, both things can coexist. My experience and their experience can coexist. Two things can be true at the same time. Like I said, that Blake Lively herself said in an interview for this movie that I thought was like one of the best. And she seemed so on it and she seemed so genuine and truthful with that. I love that. I hope that gets highlighted more. It won't, but whatever. But yeah, and then can't wait to spend more time with you. That was the third thing that I was like, oh, maybe people will take this. The people who have this theory that they were affairing or crushing on each other or whatever. These are my final thoughts on that. I'm not going to go into 90 Day Fiance. It's way too late. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much to everyone who's like been on here and commented and liked and oh gosh. Yeah. Someone said on I don't know, YouTube, Instagram, like imagine if in real world, the 20 people that we complain on social media, which I rarely get. Like with this, it's been happening a little bit more, but if we complain that 20 people only 20 people complimented us or like said hi to us on a daily basis, like how crazy is that? Because most of us don't have that many people. And so to me, I'm definitely so grateful and thankful, and I'm so excited because I love the community that's building. But yeah, so not going into 90 days next time, 90 Day Fiance thoughts. But yeah, as a wrap up, like I just love this voice note. It gives so much to us. It gives examples of how what we need to like keep growing to if we haven't gotten there, and to see healthy examples of not just a man but a human being. um, yes, there are times when he's, as people say, like placating her or whatever. But yeah, most of this is just like such a great example of just a very secure person and a good way of living life. But yeah, it's hard with how things turned out. It's hard. I think it's great how he's also showing that, hey, just because I'm kind, I'm not weak. And strength doesn't mean, I mean, it's getting ugly, but again, it's not getting that ugly when you think about it from his side. He's not name calling her. He's just dropping these things, these receipts, these pieces of evidence. Like, hey, this is what happened. You make your decision public. She is calling him an abuser. She's calling him, all these things. So yeah, that they're smearing, campaigning on us and, all this stuff. She Her team is playing dirty. He's not. And yeah. Okay, 6% on my battery. I'm gonna read the last few things here and then I'm gonna go. Thank you so much again. Um, Sony let Blake do her final cut of the movie. Yeah, yeah, that's right. He said boob, which is better than breast or yeah, yeah, exactly. But boob is also like, I mean, let's be honest, childish. We haven't, evolved as a society to like be able to say. Not boob, but I like boob. Ryan was always making fun of people. I never liked his humor. He's better when he's real. Uh, in my opinion, I need to get with the times with all of these. Like, but I think I am always in my opinion, right? Not a comedian. Yeah, that's been my take on him. You're doing a great job. Thank you for your coverage. Thank you. Okay, well, yeah. I really need to go because yeah, I would say a lot about Ryan. I maybe I need to like look into his stuff because everyone loves him. And by everyone, people who love him say everyone loves him. And he is really popular and big at the box office. So yeah, but at least as Deadpool, I think that's like the low part of humanity. That is what we need to have so much less of. That's what we need to like leave behind. And I think that's why it's hard for us to hear Justin and see him and see like, oh, he's a secure man, he's a strong man, and all the stuff because we think that is, but making fun of people and having that kind of humor and putting people down and no, that's not a strong man. Literally the two opposites. This is like the mature version, Ryan, of not him being immature necessarily, but the immature version of, a strong man, the toxic masculinity of a strong man kind of thing, and the healthy masculinity. And someone said divine masculinity. So of Justin. Okay, 5%. Thank you. I'm gonna rush so this goes and publishes. Good night. Good night. Bye. Oh. Have a great night. See you later. Bye.